Welcome back to the Can't Stop Talking podcast. Oh my gosh, you guys, by Thursday, I'm always so exhausted. Like it's the end of my week. You guys know I like to keep my Fridays very light. I usually take off to go on a trip, or I just like to keep it light because I am, put all the work in for those 4 days and it's time to tan and work on my mindset myself. And so by the time it comes to record this podcast, I'm always like exhausted because I leave it for the last thing. This is a reminder that if you have something that you need to do it in the morning, do it in the beginning of your week. That book, Eat the Frog, they're not kidding. Because for me, it's always like I have lunch on Thursdays and then I'm scrolling TikTok for an hour trying to, you know, get myself hyped for the podcast, even though it's one of my favorite things in the freaking world. I just leave it till the end of the week, which is so crazy. One time, one of my clients said she was leaving content till the end of the week, and I was like, girl, you got to do that in the beginning because I know when it hits Fridays, all I can think about is margaritas, and that's where my brain goes. So this is just to remind you that we're all human. I scroll on TikTok, I procrastinate, but you can still have a six-figure business. So today's topic is actually one of my amazing, I almost said viewers, someone in my community messaged me. I've never spoken to her before, and she said that she absolutely loves the podcast, and that made me so happy. And I asked her if there was anything that she'd like to see on the podcast, and she said, top tips for your first year in business. So I said, your wish is my command. So if you guys ever have a topic that you'd like to see on the podcast, just reach out to me and I'd love to take care of that for you. So here are my top tips for your first year in business. This could honestly be good for any business owner, like no matter if it's your first year or your third, because these are things I constantly go back to and have to remind myself. But these are also things that I was either already doing in my business or I wish I could, teleport back to the beginning of my business and explain to myself like, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So that's why you have this podcast. So let's just get right into it. I wrote down so many tips, but you guys know I like to make these episodes quick so you can just breeze by and really, just have a little quick manifesting walk and get to it. So the first thing that I would say is I would have, and I did do this. The first thing that I did was create a community. I had no idea what I was gonna, have a business about. And so at first I tried drop shipping when I got furloughed, and that just wasn't for me. And then eventually I was like, well, anything I do in business, I'm gonna need a community. So the first thing that I did is I was like, let me build an Instagram. Right? And you can go on TikTok, you can go on Facebook, you can go on YouTube Shorts, wherever you want to grow your community is amazing. But that was my first thought. And I'm so glad I did that because I was right. Any business, they need a community, they need a loyal following, they need people, they need customers. And so my first thing that I did, and what I suggest for everyone, is to grow your community. And so from there, I would really start taking free calls. If I were you, I would get on those free calls because I know how it feels to feel like an imposter, to feel like, what am I doing? And so scared to actually put yourself out there. But when you do free calls, one, that takes away the imposter syndrome because you're like, okay, amazing. Like, this is free. So if they don't get what they want out of this, then it's completely fine. But also, it is scientifically proven that someone could talk to a tree for an hour and that could be beneficial for them. So you putting yourself out there, doing free calls for your community is one, getting people to know who you are. And when they're getting on those calls with you, they're beginning to know, like, and trust you. It's building, right, your confidence in being a coach. If you're not a coach, that's okay. You can skip this step, but you could also get on free calls if you have a product-based business or if you have a service-based business to kind of know what someone would want from your business and get client feedback. This is also amazing to get your first testimonials. But what I find is usually people start and they go right for a certification. And you guys know I love my certification, but where people go wrong is I really think that the way to become, the best coach for yourself is on the job training. And so I still have a certification. I love my certification, but I'm so grateful looking back that I first started taking free clients before I ever thought about doing a certification. And because I learned how to coach clients reading books, but also just through on-the-job training. And so I already felt confident in my abilities as a coach. What I see too many times is people think they need to know more in order to start their business. So they first do the certification, but the certification has so much goddamn information, which is amazing, but it makes them feel like since there's so much information that they're not good enough, right? It's kind of like feeling like you need to be 100% healed to, manifest that relationship. Like if I'm not 100% healed, if I don't know everything there is to know about myself before getting that relationship, it's not going to work. It's like, no, the relationship is a mirror for you. So it's the same vibe of like, you don't have to know everything. You're going to learn on the job training. And I really find that that's the best way, even regardless of taking clients. It's like one of the things I put on this list is keep moving. Where I find people get stuck is they like stop taking action and they decide that they need to get rid of this limiting belief before they take the action. So for example, I had really bad imposter syndrome and I kept for months getting rid of the limiting belief and I would, journal on it and that was amazing, right? But what really helped me get rid of the imposter syndrome is I finally just met up with this coach, in real life. She was, a friend of mine and she was like, go home and post a picture of yourself. I did. And after I posted a picture of myself, I swear to God, I became obsessed with it. I was like, oh my gosh, I love showing up online. And so I would have just kept going and not, got over that fear of imposter syndrome or got over that fear of taking clients if I didn't just take the action. And it's going to feel scary, but know that's your ego trying to keep you where you're at. That's not, I'm scared something's wrong, I'm going to get eaten by a tiger, hunters years ago vibe, right? That's not your nervous system freaking out because something's actually wrong. That's your nervous system freaking out because it feels uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's how we grow. And I'd like to say this, your first year of business, I swear, is the hardest year of business. And that's not to scare you, right? That's to show you that if you're feeling uncomfortable right now, that makes sense. That is normal. That's where you should be. Why it's the hardest year of business is because you're learning so many new things, right? I always say it's like a skill. It's like learning piano. I'm not just going to put a piano in front of you and you're going to be freaking Mozart, right? I think he did the piano. You guys tell me. And so, it takes a while, right? And so you're going to have these feelings of uncomfortableness, and that's okay. You're going to have to be, comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so your first year of business is going to feel scary because you're doing everything for the first time. I remember the first time I went live was so scary. The first time I created a piece of content, or the first time I, did a masterclass. Anytime you do something first, it's going to feel scary. But I'm telling you, I've coached so many women and they have always been so scared. And then when they do the thing, they're like, I want to do it 10 more times. I had a client who put on her first masterclass. She was so scared. And then she was like, I was obsessed. I loved it. Like, I want to do this a million more times. And so telling you on the job training, keep freaking moving, right? And so keep moving, take free calls. That's where we're at. The next thing is don't stop your niche from building your business. I see this time and time again that so many clients come to me and they're like, I don't know what to coach on, or I don't know, what to build my business on. And it's like, that's okay, right? Don't let you not knowing what your niche is stop you from keep going. I started as a manifestation coach, right? And then I started taking clients, like I said, on the job training, and realized that I really liked helping business owners. And that's how I became a business coach. And so that wouldn't have happened if I didn't do on the job training. What I find is so many people rewrite their Instagram bio 100 times or change their niche a million times, when in reality, just start throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? See what sticks. See what you like. This is the time to throw the spaghetti at the wall. And so I want you to, take the free clients, like I said, and see if you like coaching them, right? It's okay if your niche is broad. I'm a coach who's like, it is actually okay if your niche is broad, because manifestation was a really broad niche. However, I got very specific in the transformation. And so what you want to do is, I gave examples of my stories, right? Things I manifested in the past. And because I talked about things that I manifested, people could see the transformation, and that's why they signed up with me. So don't let your niche stop you from building the business. You can change your niche. No one's saying if you pick this niche, it's your niche for life. Not at all. And so it's okay. Try that niche, try taking free calls, maybe put on a masterclass, see how you're liking it. And if you don't like it, it's okay. Pick up the next niche, right? But keep freaking moving. And so the thing with that too is I feel that your niche can be broader, like I said. And so it's okay. You don't have to sit there and be like, I wish my niche was more specific. Come to me if you ever need help with this, but I will help you get around the fact of if you're multi-passionate and you want to talk about many things, we can figure out how to still get you the clients who also resonate with those things. So next, let's look through my list. Like I said, okay, so I didn't tell anyone what I was doing for 3 months. You don't have to take everything that I say in this podcast episode to heart, and you don't have to put all this in your business. I always say, listen to your intuition. Your coach is not right. You are ultimately right. So always listen to your intuition. I tell all my clients that. But I didn't tell anyone what I was doing for 3 months. So I didn't tell my friends what I was doing for 3 months. I decided to work in silence and really build this community. But the reason that I did that is because I didn't want anyone's limiting beliefs to dictate where I was going. I didn't want my friends to be like, okay, but how are you going to get clients? So I waited until I had a client, right? I didn't want people being like, how are you going to grow this Instagram? I waited till I had an Instagram to tell people what I was doing. And you might be different, but this worked really well for me because I wanted my success to speak for itself so that when anyone asked me a question, I could say, hey, look at my credentials. When anyone said, I was 25 at the time, when they're like, you're 25, how could you build a business? How could you be a life coach? You haven't, had enough years of experience. I could say, well, look what I did do. And so that worked really well for me. And I still do that in phases of my life now. I don't tell people what I'm doing and work in silence and then let your results speak for themselves. You guys know, I know how it feels to have an unsupportive parent, and I love my dad to effing death. He's the best, but he did not understand how I could build a business online. And so I told him that I got fired from my job when I really quit and I grew the business and ended up being like, see, like I did it. And months later, I heard him on the phone talking to his friend being like, bragging about the fact that I had, a 10K month in my business. And so I just want you to know, you do not have to tell anyone what you're doing and don't feel like people have to know your business. Work in silence. Don't let their limiting beliefs get to you if you do tell people what you're doing, because ultimately you are the only one who knows where you're going, right? My dad had no idea. I knew that I was going to be successful, but that's okay. Those were his own limiting beliefs. Don't let them project on to you, right? And I'm so happy I did that. And then my sister called me like 2 months ago, probably like 4 months ago at this point, and she was like, you're never going to guess what dad said. He said, you should build a business like your sister. And so remember, if you have this, desire placed on your heart, it's there for a reason. And you know that you are going to be successful regardless if anyone else does. Your belief in yourself matters the most. And this is what takes me next to mindset is the most important part of your business. It's the most important part of your first year. It's the most important part overall of business. And it's the reason why people succeed versus the reason people don't. You guys know that one of my private clients, when she first came to me, she was $80,000 in debt. And then 3 years later, we were able to build her a 6-figure plus business and get rid of that debt. But the reason that she was able to come to me with $80,000 in debt, right? Still invest in herself. There's people who won't invest in themselves and they have $10,000 lying around, right? She was able to invest in herself because she truly believed that this was going to work for her. She truly knew that if she put in the work, which she did, she took the action, everything I told her to do, she did immediately. She knew that she would get to where she was going. And when she came to me, she was like, I need you for mindset. She knew. She was like, I know that I can't not invest in this. And I always like to say this, I never told her to invest in myself. I always said, like, I would not advise you to invest in me with that much debt. You're going to have to make this decision on your own. And she did end up coming to that decision. I'm just taking a sip of water. But what I learned from that, right, is that mindset is key, right? The people who succeed, it doesn't matter, their background. It doesn't matter how much money they have or how much money they don't have or whatever. It's the people who literally believe and will do any action that they are going to be successful. There are so many ups and downs in business, and there's still ups and downs. And I think people get shocked because Instagram is a highlight reel. TikTok can be a highlight reel, right? And so people see that, oh my God, this person's making this much money, but like you haven't seen the amount of breakdowns. And so when you don't see other people having breakdowns, you think that there's something wrong with you and you should quit your business. That is not the freaking truth. This is why my course, Dream Business Accelerator, DBA, has the community aspect. There's a bunch of women in there at the same levels, at different levels as well, so that you can see that the breakdown is normal, that problems arise all the time in your business. And that is normal. That doesn't mean that you should quit, right? I've heard that so many times. It's like my biggest quote that I always say is there is no way to fail. There's just quitting. Like, honestly, there has been so many setbacks in my business. I don't look at them as setbacks. I look at them as anything in my life, to be honest. I have an episode about this, but when I have a breakdown in my life, I don't look at it anymore as like, oh no, this means something. I always make it mean that means a breakthrough is coming, right? Every time I've had a breakdown in my business, that has actually been my intuition saying there's a different way that you can do this that you would enjoy more. And we'll get into that. But I want you to know that mindset is so important. This is also why DBA, I have master classes in there. I have the first whole section of DBA is mindset, right? And it's because mindset, manifestation, all that good stuff. You guys know I love the manifestation, but there's so many master classes on manifestation, and it comes with Become a Soulmate Client Magnet. And the first module is manifestation energy, because honestly, no strategy is going to work unless you have the mindset, right? There's always going to be something that happens. There's always going to be a roadblock. You know, maybe a client says, oh my God, your prices are too high. And if you don't have the right mindset, you are going to say, oh my God, no one's going to pay me for this. I should just shut down my business. Fun fact, when I first started my business, I had someone message me for 4 weeks of coaching. And I was like, it's $85 for 4 weeks of coaching. And she said, I did not expect it to be that expensive. I forgot what the exact words. I made a reel about this. And I was like, oh my God. But instead of saying like, oh my God, do I have to make it even cheaper? Like, is this not possible? I'm not going to be able to have a business if no one's going to pay me $85. I was like, no, I need to speak to the person who has money. I also was like, just because that person doesn't have money doesn't mean that everyone in the world doesn't have money to pay me. And now, my private coaching, my highest packages are over $10,000. So just remember, like, if you don't have the mindset in place, you're going to listen to everything in your reality. When you do have the mindset in place, you're going to listen to, yourself, validate yourself, and listen to others around you and know that this is freaking possible. Just keep freaking going. That's the biggest thing. So like we said, blinders, keep your blinders on. That's next, right? There's so many people on the internet with so many different strategies. When I first started, I was doing everyone else's strategy, right? I decided that I need to do sales calls. I had to, this happened later, but I was like, people are DMing people. Do I have to do this, right? I thought I had to do sales pages. I needed a website. Like, I needed all this junk. You don't need any of that, right? I actually sat down and asked myself, like, what are the needle moving activities in my business? And when I thought about that, I was like, oh my God, I don't need a sales page, right? I was not making courses because I decided I needed a sales page. And once I decided I didn't need a sales page and I could sell my stories, I started making a bunch of courses, right? And then with sales calls, I was like, I freaking hate doing these sales calls. Like, I hate getting on these sales calls, feeling robotic, like stumbling over my words and trying to get people into my product. I just want to sell in my DMs. Now, I have people literally just come into my DMs and ask for the link, or they apply for DBA. And then I'm like, all right, do you want to pay in full? They're like, yeah. And that's it, right? Obviously, sometimes they have questions, but they don't really have that much objections because my content does all the speaking for them. I honestly haven't gotten an objection in so freaking long. It's insane, right? And so I want you to ask yourself, like, what are the things in your business that you think that you need to do, but you're just doing them because someone else online made a bunch of money that way, right? So many people are, say when you first start, like, get someone to help you build a website. I wasted so much time trying to build websites, you guys. That is $4,000 down the drain that you can be actually spending on a course or a group program or something like that, right? That would get you better results. So do not get caught up in the tech side of stuff. Really ask yourself, like, what do I want to be doing? What can I take out of my business? The other thing, as you guys know, I looked around at everyone's strategy, and at the time, people were just coming out with course after course after course. And so I thought I needed to have 5 courses. And so I did that, and I burnt myself out. I had a course on everything, and I was burnt out. And I thought about, the future. I was like, wait, ultimately, in my future, I want to be sitting and drinking a pina colada on the beach. But how am I going to do that if I'm constantly launching a course every single month? Right? And I was like, these courses are going to be so fluffy because I'm not going to have anything else to talk about. So I actually sat down. This was one of the breakdowns that I had. And I said, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I need to burn this business to ground because it's not sustainable and I'm going to start hating my business, which I did. I said, what is this trying to tell me? This is trying to tell me that I need a different product suite. I don't have to follow everyone else's, right? And so I was like, what do I want? I want one course, one signature course, right? So I created DBA for the person who are just like you guys who are in your first year of business, or even it could even up to when you want to make 10K months, right? It's everything that I've done. But it's for that person. And so I was like, I want my clients to get better results. So one, I'm not going to make them buy 5 courses. I'm going to put everything that you need to know to go from 0 to 5K months to 10K months in one course, right? I'm going to give them the group aspect. We'll get into that. I'm going to give them access to me and feedback. We're going to get into all that. But basically, creating one signature course has literally upped my income and given me so much time back because I'm not constantly launching something new. I'm not constantly coming out with a million new modules for a course, right? I'm obviously I come out with new modules for DBA, but I'm not coming out with like full new courses, full new branding, full new messaging, right? And I'm not constantly in launch mode. It's now evergreen. And so my life is just so much easier and I'm getting my clients better results. They're happier. They're obsessed with DBA. And so if I could go back, I would tell myself, like, stop looking at what everyone's doing and start asking yourself, like, what do I want my life to look like in a couple years, in 10 years, right? Do I want what I'm doing in my business to be what I'm doing then? And, who actually has the lifestyle that I want? So this is really important. Obviously, one of the things on this list is going to be invest in yourself, right? And this isn't coming from a like, you need to invest in me. Like, I don't give a fuck if you invest in me. I would love to have you, but I know there's an abundance of clients. So if I'm not the coach for you, like, hallelujah. What I want, my mission is to have every woman in the world, if they want to build a business, be able to build their business, right? That's my mission. I'm like, you get a business, you get a business, you get a business. But if I'm not the coach that's going to help you do that, like if my personality, if my style, if all that doesn't match up with you, find a coach that does. This is so important, my loves. I feel like I fell into the trap of like, this coach is making this much money. I need to hire her. When in reality, she didn't have the lifestyle I wanted. She was working 24/7. She didn't have the personality I wanted. She was in a suit. She had, photo shoot after photo shoot. Her branding was perfect. And nothing's wrong with these things, right? There is a person out there who wants that type of coach. But you guys know me. My hair is in a bun right now. I still have my pajamas on. That's kind of embarrassing. And it's 4:00. I am type B as it gets, right? I obviously take so much action in my business, but I do it from a place of easy, simple, right? Work smarter, not harder. I also, can't spell. You guys know that about me. I have raging ADHD. And so that's okay. You can still make money, but why was I trying to invest in people who weren't like me, right? Who were wearing suits, who were type A, who had Excel sheets, who had sales teams. I don't want to have a sales team one day. Like, I started this business so I didn't have to have a boss nor be a boss, right? Like, maybe I'll have a couple team members one day, but like for right now, I want it to be just me so I can, have this freedom. And so if I could go back, I would honestly look at the coaches and be like, do they have the lifestyle I want? Right? Are they working 24/7 or are they taking off Fridays, right? Do I like the way that they're running their business? Do they seem like they're crying behind the scenes or are they actually, the happiest girl alive? Like, really take note of this. I would say listen to their podcast, right? That's why you're here. But obviously every investment that I've done, I've loved and I've gotten what I need out of it. Even when I have invested in people who weren't like me, I needed that at that stage. I needed to be more organized. I needed to see a different view. But I do find that when you end up investing in someone who's not like you, then you get more limiting beliefs. And so I felt like I needed to be perfect. I felt like I needed to be organized. I felt like I needed to, track my day or have a sales team when I know that I don't need any of that. And once I cut out all those limiting beliefs from past mentors, my sales went up. So really ask yourself, like, do they have the lifestyle you want? Do they have the personality? And not meaning like, do you like them? Meaning like, do you resonate with them, right? And so really look at those things and, don't be afraid to chat to them. If you ever want to chat to me in the DMs, like that's what I'm here for, but 100% invest in yourself. So where I was getting with that, is also investing in yourself is so important. Like I said, this isn't a gimmick to get you to buy my stuff. If you want to invest in someone else, please do that because I think this is so important to business. What people don't realize is we are so lucky, right? I always say this. Like they're like, oh my gosh, I've already invested 10 grand into my business. That's so much. Like, yeah, that's a lot of money, Becky. I agree 100%. But if you wanted to start a cupcake business, you would have to be literally giving up front 500 to a million, $500,000 to $1 million these days. Like literally, you would have to get a place, you would have to pay for rent, you would have to pay for supplies, workers, all these things. You would be giving so much money in that business. And I find that people are really scared to invest in themselves these days, which makes sense because there's just so many people saying that online. But in reality, I want you guys to realize that like I would not effing be here if I didn't invest in myself. I really look at investing. I usually have a coach. Like, I'm not kidding. I've invested, you guys know, probably at this point, $100,000 into this business, which sounds insane, but I really have seen someone from the first mastermind I did. Actually, I got on the phone with her. She actually ended up becoming one of my clients, but she was like, I guess it's been 4 years since that mastermind. She was like, it's only 3 of us are still in the coaching, and it was a 50-person mastermind. There's only 3 people that are still doing this, right? And I know it's because I kept investing in myself and believing in myself. Because when you invest in yourself, you take action, and action is what gets you to your goal. Do you need to invest $100,000? Absolutely not. And remember, that's over 4 years. So that's like 25 grand a year, right? But I guess it's a little more because it's like 3 years, whatever. This is my 4th year in business. But what I want you to know is do not be scared to invest in yourself if you know you're going to put in the work, right? My client was $80,000 in debt and she invested in herself and she was able to clear that debt because she listened, she implemented, she took action, she was committed, and she knew where she was going, right? When you believe in yourself, you believe in investing. I don't really get that scared anymore when I invest in myself because it's like, oh, I know I'm going to put the work in. I know this is going to get me, an ROI. My last coach, I just had an ROI of 4 times that, right? And so you don't know how to build a business. We didn't learn how to build a business in college. It's so annoying. I was a finance major. I knew nothing, and that's okay that you know nothing. So why don't you get the fast pass to Six Flags and learn from someone who does? And what I would say with this is, I thought about this. When I was first starting, I highly recommend that you first start with a course that has some support. So I wouldn't recommend actually going straight to a one-to-one coach. And the reason being is that there's so much that you have to learn that it would be very beneficial to have a course. And so the first thing that I did is I bought courses, but I had an accountability partner. So a girl actually from my college was in the course and we kept each other accountable. And now looking back, if I didn't have her, there's no way I would be here because I would have given up at like the niche module, right? I would have been like, I don't know what to do for my niche. And then I would have given up, but I had her. And this is why I created DBA the way I created DBA. I'm very importantly, right? Strategically, I created DBA where you have a whole curriculum that you can go to and get the information so that you don't have to ask your coach, how do I create a piece of content? Like, no, that's all in there. Or like, how do I send a contract? That's in there. How do I send links, right? How do I reprogram my brain? How do I do a launch? Like all of that is in DBA. DBA is stacked. How do I sell in my stories? Like everything's in there so that you can go into DBA and watch the modules on your own. And then you come to the group calls and ask your questions so that you don't get stuck in the mindset parts, right? And then you have that community of women. I just love it because when I come to the calls, they're like, I was working with Shayna behind the scenes today, or I just did a live with Erin today. Like it makes me so happy. And then you also have the one-on-one call with me so that we can map out your business together. Like I just had a client come to me with that niche question and we were able to have her fully understand what she's been doing wrong for the 6 months. She's been selling the homework instead of the transformation. And then we created content together in that one onboarding call. And now she understands that the last 6 months, she's been doing the wrong thing and this is what she needs to be doing. That's why I love investing in yourself, because she would have never known that. For the next 6 months, she would have been doing the same thing. And on top of that, I created a Slack and a review channel so that my next point was going to be that you can get feedback. This is so important. Like I just said, yes, you could be posting every day for a year and nothing happens. And why nothing happens is because you're not posting the right stuff. And this is so important. And that's why it's so important to have, a course or a group program where you are getting feedback on your stuff. And this is why I review my clients' content and their sales pages and whatever else they give me. In DBA, because I want to make sure that they are putting the right stuff out there that's actually going to move the needle and get them clients. You can post every day for years and nothing's going to happen if you're not posting stuff that's actually going to convert your clients. That's the truth, honestly. That goes into, if I could go back, I would literally not think about anything else in my business other than creating powerful content. Truly. I would literally get so good at creating powerful content. That's why there's so many modules in DBA about this, but this is the window shop to your business. This is how I get clients into my DMs, not asking for objections. This is how I gain followers. This is how, I make sales. Content is everything. And if you master content, you're going to be good. The people who I've seen in their first year really shoot up is because they've mastered how to speak to their ideal clients and how to convert in their content. Truly, this is if I could go back. And I'm constantly, learning more tricks about content so I could help my clients. Perfect. So like I said, have support. I wouldn't go right to a one-on-one coach just because you want, you want those modules so that you don't have to ask your your coach how to do those things. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is good things take time, right? I always talk about the fact that I love Amanda Francis. She's unbelievable and she makes millions of dollars a year now, but her first year she made $0 in her business. And I've had a client come to me and she was like, and this was a podcast episode 2 ways back, but breakdown turns into breakthroughs. She came to me and she was like, I'm just so far along. And she made money in her business. I bet she made, I don't know, I'm really just making something up, but she made probably $20,000. And I was like, girl, do you know how many people don't make a cent in their first year of business? And you think, because you're looking at Instagram, that you are far along? Oh my God. And this is where put on your blinders. But I want you guys to realize, if you had to make a cupcake business, that would probably take years to even get the cupcake business up and running. And you would be, $1 million down the drain. I always talk about this. Jeff Bezos, it took 9 years to literally turn a profit. And he also had Amazon stores that he had to get rid of. He had to downsize. Imagine if his mindset was bad and he was like, well, I'm downsizing. And, I don't know who's one of his competitors. At the time, Barnes & Noble's over here. They're doing just fine, right? Imagine if he said that and he was like, I should just get rid of this business. No, what the hell? That was the biggest business on the planet. And so I want you guys to remember, just like your blinders, good things take time and patience, right? You're learning so many skills as someone who's new. You're learning how to market yourself. You're learning how to be a good coach. You're learning how to create content, all these selling, so much stuff, right? And that's why it's so goddamn important to give yourself grace, right? Take time. And if you need to get, a side job, or if you need to get a real job, that is totally fine. You're not giving up. You're actually doing a smart thing and, helping yourself, create money to invest more, right? I want you to start looking at these things as you're doing all the right actions to be able to have this amazing business. And so remember, time and patience. When I was first starting out, I was posting 3 times a day because I wanted this so bad. Not saying to do that, but I just want you to realize that sometimes you just have to take more and more action. And it's not that you're doing the wrong thing. You just have to do more of it. That's what Alex Hormozi says, right? And so good things, they take time and patience. I don't care if you didn't make $0 in your first year of business, your second year of business, you can make $10,000. And then the next, right? Amanda Francis. She literally made 500 like the next. And then, it wasn't till like 3, 4, 5 years later that she made her first 6 figures. And now 10 years later, she makes millions of dollars a year. She knew where she was going though. So I don't care if you had a failed launch, resell that program. She said the first time she sold her program, she got 4 people in. The first time I sold my program, DBA, I got 3 people in. 3. But I knew that this program was going to change lives. Now I get asked every single week, how can I join DBA? Imagine if I was like, I only got 3 people in, no one wants this, right? And so stop making everything mean something about something else. Stop making the fact that you had a failed launch or that content didn't go well or that you didn't get likes and engagements. Stop making those stuff mean things and realize that you have to put in time and have patience. And that's another good tip. Like, stop making vanity metrics mean anything, right? I want you instead to take your goal and reverse it. If your goal is to sign your first client, instead of sending out a piece of content and saying, damn, I got no likes. What I want you to do instead is, if your goal is to sign your first client, then what do you have to do? What do you have to reverse engineer? Well, if I want to sign my first client, maybe I have to post 5 times a week, right? Maybe I have to sell on my stories 5 times a week. So instead, I want you to ask yourself, what are the actions we're taking? Don't look at the things you can't control, like likes, all that stuff. Instead, the things that you can control is the action you're taking, and then feel good about yourself every week if you took that action. It doesn't matter if your post went viral, right? I actually never really have posts go viral anymore. It matters if you actually took all the action that you said you were going to do. For example, this podcast, I talk about it all the time. I posted this podcast every single week for 8 months and heard crickets, but I knew where I was going. And because I just told myself, I'm going to stick with this, I'm going to keep posting. Now I have people messaging me every single week saying they're obsessed with podcasts, right? Because I just promised myself that I would post, and didn't promise myself that my podcast would go viral or anything like that. So I love you guys so freaking much. This is why I created DBA, for this type of person, so that they can have all the support and accountability they need at a price point that was incredible for them. That wasn't, $10,000 plus to have a private coach, a group coaching, modules, another course, like all those things. They could have it for a price that they felt good about. And I will be adding soon a coaching module, right? So that, yes, I think my certification, I'm so happy that I did it, and I'm absolutely obsessed with my certification. But I truly believe that the best thing that ever happened to me was just first trying to build my business and then doing the certification, because I don't want you guys to get stuck in imposter syndrome. So I love you guys so much. If you need anything, I'm here. My DMs are open. If you like this episode, if you want to hear different topic, I'm here for you. That's about it. I'm like sweating in my room. So I love you guys. I'm going to go now and have the best weekend ever. Wow, this is the longest episode I've ever done. Okay, love you guys. Mwah.